Okay, so guys, let's talk about driving in China. China is one of the hardest places to get a driving license. If you check on the internet, the worst place to get a driving license is probably in places like Norway. But then China comes right there with the best. It's very hard to get a driving license, and I'll explain why. So first of all, it's the money. So it takes about 3,800 to get a Chinese driving license. That's about 400,000 Malawi kwacha, or 500,000 to be fair. And that's just for your driving license. And then there are other things, you need to register, where you live. You need to have an ID card, which should not alarm anyone, because these are basic things. Really, if you're going to drive, you have to be registered somewhere. But other than that, is the exams that put people off. So many foreigners, I've seen blogs of many foreigners who said, you know what, I tried driving in China, but I can't anymore because it's crazy, it's nightmarish, So you start with test one. Test one has 1,000 questions which you must memorize, but of those 1,000, you only get about 100 on the exams, and of those 100 you have to pass 90% and above. So you can't pass if you get like 89. So it's really crazy, and the questions are really difficult. I'll show you the samples in the inserts. And then there is test 2. Test 2 is automated. So most of the tests are automated. It's just you and GPS and the car. So you out there, you do, you park your car, you negotiate some winded road, you turn at 90 degrees angle, and then there's the hill start. Once you start, you have to get at least 90 as well. So I got 100%. And then you go to test 3. Test 3 is where you go to the real world. So you go on an actual road. And there, it can get tricky as well, because it's also automated. So you have to react to so many things. So they take you to a road where they plant fake road signs. So you see a school, and automatically if you see a school, even if you don't see an actual school, you have to engage into lower gear and drive slowly and all that, 30 kilometers per hour and stuff like that. So it's really tricky. When I was doing my test, there was a woman who was on her third test, and she failed. She said, oh, this is my second time, and sadly I failed again, because it's just so hard. And then after you pass test 3, you have to go to test 4, which is also another 500 questions you have to memorize. They call it the civilization test, but it's really just like test 1. They will ask you so many questions, and I will give you samples in the video, and some of them are just impossible to understand. And then there are some road signs, for example customs. It's just a sign with some Chinese character. So driving in China means that you have to at least know some Chinese, otherwise your life will not be very easy to negotiate. So there is that. And after test 4, then the police will mail you your license to your home, so you could possibly know why they would want to get your driving your home credentials there. But yes, there is that. And then you get your license, then you go to the driving itself. But before I go to the driving itself, let's talk about the driving school now, the guys that get your 500,000. To be fair, the money is not enough, because you have to do, for example, for test 3, you have to do 300 kilometers on an actual road. So if you don't max out those numbers, for example, if you don't get 300 kilometers, you don't get to book a test. So it's a very crazy story, because the traffic police department is working with the driving schools. They monitor you. There's video in the car. So if you're not in the car, it takes snapshots of you periodically to see if you're concentrating, to see if you're actually there, to see if you're actually listening to what is being said. So if you don't, then it will discount the hours. Those don't count, and you cannot do so many hours per day. So you can't cheat that software. And it's crazy. It's like they're monitoring you. The driving school is monitoring you. Everything that is being said in the car is being recorded. But also the traffic, police department. So when I wanted to book this other test, they were like, yeah, you don't have enough hours to book a test, so you have to go back, and you just go back to to class and drive the car anyhow you want, just to get the numbers. So it's really interesting what happens in a driving school in China. And then you get a total of like 4 driving instructors. The first time you go to a driving school in China, they will tell you, yeah, you have to do test one, which involves the test. So you do test 1, you ace it, and then you go to a simulator. They won't allow you to get into a car just like that yet. So you go into a simulator, and then after you do the simulation, then you can go into an actual car to meet your other teacher. So the simulation guy is another guy, and then the test 2 teacher is another guy, and then he will tell you, oh yeah, this is how we handle things, this is what you should supposed to do. But then when it comes to the test 2 and or just driving in China in general, they will focus a lot on what will be on the exams. So they will never teach you some tricks. You have to learn those on your own. Otherwise they just focus, oh yeah, you're going to do this type of parking, this type of parking, this type of parking, and this type of turning. Don't waste your time on these other things, and we don't need that, we don't need this, and we don't need that. And this is just crazy that way. But it's fun anyway, because you do the same thing repeatedly. No wonder you go on to ace the exam if you are an average guy. And yeah, so there is that. And then your test 3 teacher is also another person who will be out there in the car with you at all times, and the car has an extra set of brakes just in case you jump onto other people. But the exam, the test 3 exam, is stressful because you have a police officer there, and her job is not to actually check the scores or anything. Her job is just to stop the car in case you make some error. So like when this girl did commit an offense when she was testing, they just stopped it and said, get out and give me the car keys, and that was it. So it's really interesting what happens in China in terms of the driving scene. So when you get that license and you go to the streets, first things first, there are too many cars in China, and too many cyclists, and too many pedestrians, and jaywalking is quite common. So people don't frown upon things like jaywalking, and you just see people entering the roads anyhow. So that can be a bummer. And the cyclists, the e-bikes, the proliferation of e-bikes is pretty significant. And then people will just be on the streets, and they don't care who is there, and that can be tricky as well for a cyclist. Also you have the right on red rule. I don't think we have that rule in Malawi. So when it's red like this one, so I'm coming up to a traffic right here, and it's red, you can go right. You don't need to slow down, you don't need to stop or anything. That is an interesting thing to note. And yeah, I don't think many countries have got that rule, and it's one that you get to get used to. So it's also right-hand drive in China. So in case of Malawi, I am now driving on the left, when I, in actual sense, it should be the other way around. So it also gets it takes getting used to switch from that mentality where you approach an intersection and in your mind you're thinking, oh yeah, that means I need to go this way, and it can confuse people. So it's good to start afresh and get to know the ropes of this thing of driving in China, especially if you're from a country where you are used to driving on the left, like the British countries like Hong Kong. Okay, Hong Kong is not a country, don't get me in trouble. Like countries like Japan and England and all those countries. So yes, that's about it. Driving in China, you have to watch out for the speed limit. And the good thing in China is that the speed limits are crazy. You'll be like inside the city and the speed limit is like 70 or 80. Like, yeah, on this road you can drive 80 kilometers per hour. That is something that you get on an actual M1 in countries like Malawi. So it's very interesting. And on the highway here it's 120. So 120 and you're good to go. That's max. The minimum is like 90. So you have to drive really fast on the highways here. And another thing is that there are a lot of big trucks here, so you can just see them right there in the distance. They are not allowed to enter the city, for example, in the morning up to like 7 p.m. But sometimes when you stray into a road that is going just outside the city, you see a lot of big trucks. And whenever you look at videos of accidents on Chinese roads, it's usually these big rollers. Now China is a big country with big industry. These guys are everywhere and they will bully you, They don't like to stop, and sometimes on weekends they've been known to, just pass through red light. And it's up to you to be careful on the highway. And there's so many of them, it's crazy and scary as well. But yeah, that's about it on driving in China. So I did ace my driving license. I got 97 in the first test, 100 in the second, 100 in the third, and then 100 in the last one, and I got my license just like that. But it took a lot of time, about 3 months, because you have to balance like your work life and going to the driving school. Also, you can't do more than 1 hour, for example. And another crazy thing that I did say is that they make you install a lot of apps. So you have like 123 123 app, and then you have an app from the driving school, and then you have an app that tracks that. So you have so many apps. You have to book your exams on an app and all that. Sometimes you have to study on an app. Sadly, they are not English. There are no English materials for you on the app. And China being China, there are people who sell the English materials online. So you go online, some guy will sell you like a booklet, all the questions, like a question bank for 100. So you can study them in English, and then the tests are administered in English, so you can get an English test. And I did get an English test. My Chinese is not that good, but apart from that, yeah, it's fun driving in China. And one more thing though, the price of gas or petrol is not that much in China. It's pretty standard. I think it's should be $1 per liter. I think that's about 700 in Malawi. So slightly cheaper, but not very cheap. But then, in case of driving long distance, so for example, if you want to go to another city, the toll gate fees in China are pretty high. You get like 80 or 100 to do like 300 Ks, or to do like from here to the next city. And when you cross like the undersea bridges and all that, the tunnels, you also sometimes get to pay. So they have an impeccable transport system in China. So sometimes it's good just to get on the high-speed train. You go there, you arrive in about the same time as you would if you drove there. You would not have to deal with so many trucks on the streets, and you will not have to fork out some money for gas. So for example, if you fill your tank with 300 RMB worth of fuel. That's the price of going and coming back using the train station, with some change and with some comfort in between, and you don't have to deal with the exorbitant parking fees. That's another thing you have to look out for when you're driving in China. The parking fees are ridiculous. So some apartments, when you buy the apartment, they sell an extra parking space for you, so you can have one car. Many people have one car. It's not like the US where you can max out on 5 and so many cars. Here people stick to one car because partly the parking fees. I think recently there were protests in the west part of China because people were like, yeah, it's too expensive to drive to have a car, because people will try to cheat you out of your money by just charging parking tickets after parking tickets. So you say, like, let me go out to the gym and drive. You go to the gym, you can't find parking space, and it's crazy. And that's another thing you have to look out for when you're driving in China. It's parking space. There's not a lot of, and there are so many cars. And talking about cars, let me just get close to a few of them here. You'll definitely see very few Toyotas here, but you will see a lot of German cars and American cars. So Germany, I think 1 in 4 cars in China are German, and then American. And the local car scene is also coming up, and you see a lot of the local cars. So for example, this is Sagitar VW. In front of me there's a VW as well. But you see, that's the basic scene in China in a nutshell. So yeah, that is it about driving in China. And in case you get to come here, hit me up. I will tell you the ropes. I still have the question banks and how you can ace the tests and all that. And yes, the roads are smooth, like 5 lanes, and it's really crazy. So take some time to try out this one. So to make this video, I've gone like in the outskirts. So this is in the north of the city, and it's a large industrial complex. Someone told me this used to be a village, but they moved everyone from here and they just gave it away to companies. So you have like Korean companies making car parts and it's crazy. The industrialization scale in China is ridiculous. So you have got a giant plain that is really fertile soil as well, and it's just been given out to industry. So most of these streets are actually labeled in either Chinese and Korean or Chinese and German for some reason, and most of the industries in this part that I am right now are predominantly Korean. So Koreans might be missing their jobs. They're here in China, and Chinese people are getting very rich off of the idea of making things in China. So yeah, I guess it's a win-win for the world. Labor is relatively cheap here, and people can get rich here, and then the rest of the world gets cheap car parts. And the buses that are just passing right now, they are from the steel plant just nearby. So this is Shandong Steel, ST Steel, Yugang, and also nearby is a port, Shandong Port, I think, regional port, very busy port. So if I just make a left turn and drive for 2 kilometers, it's ridiculous the amount of trucks and the amount of industry that is going on in the places. So it's interesting to drive in China. Okay, and cut.